So those of you who are in the holistic allopathic world, do you ever wonder why a body has diarrhea? Why a body needs to barf? So just think about it for a minute. Just get off the J juice for a minute. Just get out of the J juice mentality and look at why it is that your body reacts in such a way. Why do bodies go diarrhea to such an extent where they have to go to the hospital to get electrolytes to go and rehydrate them with electrolytes? What's in the electrolytes? Glucose, saline. And why do some people use 4 bags of saline of electrolytes after a huge flu bug? Why do people throw up? When you're throwing up so much, what is in reaction to? And so you must first explore why that happens to begin with. Well, usually when somebody throws up, usually when someone barfs or has diarrhea, it's because they've been exposed to a new viral programming that the body is now attempting to reprogram the body and release the old programming. You can call it excess. You could call it is actually releasing the old program. So get away from J juice for a minute and understand why in your environment, when you're just going along merry way and then all of a sudden you hear about all these viruses and everything else, then you get exposed to a virus and then all of a sudden, oh my God, you start throwing up. Now, how come you're throwing up and how come you are having a diarrhea, but you're not first coughing and sneezing and mucusy? Oh, because that was destroyed. That was an indicator something was going on and you ignored those indicators. Or that first line of defense was destroyed. So the second line of defense, when somebody is reacting to a change in their environment, they start throwing up and they start diarrheaing everywhere. Well, that's the body's attempt to change the programming on its own. It's in reaction mode. Okay? So all sickness out there in the allopathic holistic world is a reactive response to a viral environment, a new data environment. And so then what happens is then the person will either be able to recover on their own because they're taking chicken soup. What's in the chicken soup? Oh, it's salt. They're eating a bland diet, drinking liquids, replenishing their fluids because the body went through an immunological response to its environment. Yes, gastroenteritis. Absolutely odd. Yes, odd, Stuart. And so, when we're doing the J juice and you throw up and you have diarrhea, you're giving your body electrolytes simultaneously. And yes, you are attempting to get rid of old programming and finally evolve to the level of your environment. And so what J juice does, it preemptively, retroactively forces you to evolve to the level of what you have suppressed a long time ago. And yes, it does happen in waterfalls. And yes, some people throw up. Not all the time. I didn't really throw up. But whenever you change your biochemistry and you finally allow your body to react to the viral evolutions that you were exposed to for the last however many years, you're going to have to deal with that. And so yes, when you're pooping out old programming. That's why I told my husband, you need to poop. You need to poop. You need to throw up. And he did that. And it made his throat raw and he had to. I mean, he wasn't doing J juice, but he was reacting to a virus. So all your kids and all your charges and all that stuff, people who you're looking after, when they're throwing up and they're pooping and they've been exposed to a virus that's trying to attempt to change their programming and get rid of the old programming. And then what people do is they take Imodium. What people do is they try to stop the throwing up. I don't know what you take to stop throwing up. I don't think I ever. But maybe, people are like, oh, it's what you ate. You ate something. They always blame the food. My husband blamed the food. He's like, oh, did I get food poisoning? Are you trying to poison me, Julie? I'm like, oh my God. But he's kidding. But that's the go-to in the holistic allopathic world. So when people throw up, they always blame the food, but they never understand what the virus is actually doing. And the system doesn't tell them that. The system goes, oh, you probably ate something. You just you might have got, with a virus. There's probably something with the food supply. And so it's an easy way to blame. And then this is where then the rumors about food and about specific foods then become about, and then it turns into a discrimination game. And then this is where people's activism bandwagon gets like, oh, you shouldn't eat that food because it makes you throw up. You shouldn't eat that food because it does this. But the reality is the body is attempting to change its programming because of the change in the environment. And so when you're doing Jilly Juice, you are actually proactively, retroactively bringing up evolutions from years before. The body is releasing the old programming. Now you're going to bring in the new programming with the food supply. You're exposed to all the viruses in your environment. You can't get away from that, and all the predispositions that your body has been, suppressed, that you haven't been able to really actually tackle. The system has channeled about you and stopped the evolution. You're going to have to deal with it. It's like a deluge. When you hold back the waters that are just trying to come out, like the dams, like the Hoover Dam. You break down those walls, which is basically the channel blocks. That's the holistic allopathic world, is the Hoover freaking Dam. They have dammed up all of your evolution, and then Jilly Juice releases the gates, and now your flood of evolution is coming towards you. Now you got to deal with it. You got to eat the food supply. You got to catch up. And so with all these viruses, either a virus or a vector therapeutic or Jilly Juice is going to bring up evolution. And you have to know that that's what is going on. And so when people throw up off of the J juice and they diarrhea and they're not doing J juice, that's what's going on. So, you can try to blame Jilly Juice for all your predispositions. I'm sorry, but Jilly Juice is just evolution. But like anything, if you do too many pluses, it turns into a minus. What is it? A positive plus a positive equals a negative. A negative plus a negative equals a positive. Okay? And so in this case, when you do so much Jilly Juice, they'll turn into a negative. So you have to understand how to work with the J juice. And the J juice does bring up evolution. But you also can abuse it. And that's where I'm trying to find the balance to explain, first of all, where does diarrhea and barfing come from, not on the J juice. And then realizing the connection between viruses. Viruses have everything to do with throwing up and with barfing or with diarrhea. Viruses have everything to do with cancer, disease, chronic illness, autoimmune disorders. And then the medical holistic system tries to manipulate, try to control your de-evolution or your evolution relative to where you are. You could be a kid trying to grow up in the society, so the system is trying to control your evolution. And then when you're declining, once you reach that peak of maturity and then you start declining, the system tries to control your de-evolution because you don't know any better. And so now it's like relearning why our body responds to the environment. And it's because the changes in the environment are the catalyst to it. And then you have to look at your body as like a CPU, like a program. You release the old data and you're bringing in new data. It's all about evolving, just like when you go and update your computer. It releases the old programming, brings in the new programming, and then everything's working all nice and smooth until the next year, the update. Sometimes the updates don't always go correctly, and so they have to go and correct it. But you're always going to adapt to your environment. And your body will always adjust to the environment, but you have to understand what these adjustments are like, and it comes out in pain. Now, it won't be as bad as you actually finally catch up to the evolution. But in the beginning, when you first start the J juice, you got to keep up with all of that water in the dam. So the force of the deluge is like the first initial experience of the dam finally being broken, and not broken, but released. All that water. I'm skipping. I gotta go. Bye.